For 4,500 years, one civilization has held the crown. When you picture human beings moving impossible stone, you picture Egypt, the pyramids rising straight out of the desert. Obelisks taller than a 4-story building, each one cut from a single piece of granite. Statues so heavy that moving just one of them today would take a fleet of cranes. Egypt is the name carved into our imagination whenever the stones get large. But here is something almost nobody tells you. Thousands of miles away, on the far side of the planet, high in the mountains of Peru, another civilization may have done something harder. Not bigger, harder. Because Egypt's builders had advantages that Peru's builders could only dream of. Egypt worked on flat ground, beside a calm, wide river that did half the carrying for them. The Nile was, in a sense, a free-moving belt running the length of the country. Peru had no such gift. Peru's builders cut stones the size of delivery trucks and then dragged them up the side of the Andes Mountains, across rivers, around the edges of cliffs, to heights where the air itself is thin enough to leave a grown man dizzy and gasping. So tonight, we are going to settle an old argument once and for all. Round by round, Egypt against Peru. The most famous stone movers in history against the most underestimated. Egypt built bigger. There is no argument about that. But did Peru build better? Stay with me, because by the end, the answer may not be the one you expect. And there is one site in Peru, one single place, that quietly turns this whole debate upside down. Most people outside South America have never even heard its name. We will get there. But first, let me set the stage. Picture Egypt, 3,500 years ago, a flat green ribbon of farmland hugging both banks of the Nile, with endless desert on either side. Once a year the river floods, the fields vanish underwater, and for a few months, the farmers cannot farm. That is the secret behind so much of Egypt's building. When the land was underwater, the workforce was free. Thousands of strong, idle hands, all in one place, all needing to be fed and paid by the state. So the state put them to work moving stone. And they had the perfect highway to move it on. Float a granite block onto a barge at the quarry, let the river carry it most of the way, and drag it the final stretch over flat ground on wooden sledges with a man walking ahead, pouring water on the sand to make the load slide easier. We will come back to that detail. It matters more than it sounds. And do not underestimate the organization behind it. To move a single great stone, Egypt could call on a small army of workers, scribes to count them, officials to feed them, and a chain of command stretching all the way up to the pharaoh himself. This was not a handful of clever men. This was a whole state pointed at one block of granite. Now picture Peru. There is no flat green ribbon here. There is the spine of the Andes jagged mountains climbing to 10, 11, 12,000 feet. The air is thin. The slopes are steep enough to make your legs burn just walking uphill empty-handed. And here is the part that should stop you. The people who built in these mountains had no wheel for heavy transport, no iron tools, no horses or oxen strong enough to haul a great stone. What they had was rope, timber, stone hammers, and human muscle, and a mountain that fought them at every step. So think of it as a contest between two teams. One is playing at home, on flat ground, with the river as a teammate. The other is playing away, uphill, in the cold, with one hand tied behind its back. 5 rounds. Biggest stone moved. Precision of the fit. Difficulty of the ground. How long it lasted, and how much mystery still hangs over it. Keep a tally in your head as we go, because at the end, we are going to add it up, and then I am going to hand the final verdict to you. Let us start where Egypt is strongest. Raw weight. Egypt's heavyweights are almost difficult to believe. The greatest of them was a single-seated statue of the pharaoh Ramesses II, carved for his great temple. The estimates put its weight at around 1,000 tons. Sit with that number for a moment. 1,000 tons. That is the weight of roughly 250 fully grown elephants, carved into the shape of one man out of one block of stone. And it did not form where it was meant to stand. The granite was quarried at Aswan, in the far south, and dragged roughly 170 kilometers to its resting place. 1,000 tons, moved across the land by rope and timber and sweat. Try to picture the day they actually moved it. Hundreds of men, lined up in teams, leaning into ropes as thick as your arm. The great stone resting on a wooden sledge. A drumbeat to keep them pulling together, because if they pull out of time, the whole thing stops dead. And out in front, the water pours, soaking the ground so the sledge will glide rather than grind. Inch by inch, day after day, across 170 kilometers of country. That is not a quick trick. That is months of disciplined, back-breaking labor. Then there are the colossi of Memnon, two enormous seated guardians on the west bank of the Nile, each one weighing in the region of 720 tons, not one of them, each. Now, what about Peru? Peru's largest finished blocks, at the great fortress of Sacsayhuaman above Cusco, are genuinely colossal, well over 100 tons each. Standing beside one, you feel like a child beside a parked lorry. But let us be honest, because honesty is what makes this whole video worth your time. 100 tons is enormous. It is not 700. It is not 1,000. On raw weight, there is no contest. This round goes to Egypt. The score is Egypt 1, Peru nothing. But hold that result loosely, because the river that helped Egypt so much is about to start looking less like skill and more like a head start. Now we come to the round that people argue about most. And the argument is exactly what makes Peru's win here so satisfying. So let me be fair to both sides. Egypt's precision is real, and it is staggering. The Valley Temple beside the Sphinx. The polished granite boxes deep beneath Saqqara, with inside surfaces so flat and so smooth that a modern instrument struggles to find any error at all. When it comes to taking the hardest stone on earth and making one perfectly flat, perfectly polished face, the Egyptians were masters. Nobody is taking that away from them, but Peru's precision is a different animal altogether. It is not about flatness. It is about fit. Look at the polygonal walls of Sacsayhuaman. There is one famous stone there, with 12 separate sides, 12 angles, and every single one of them is matched perfectly to the stone beside it. No mortar, no cement, nothing holding them together but the shape itself, and the joints are so tight that to this day you cannot slide a knife blade or even a sheet of paper into the gap. Now picture the problem the builders actually faced. Imagine being handed 1,000 boulders, every one of them a different, awkward, irregular shape, every one weighing more than your car. And imagine being told to build a wall where each stone locks into the ones around it perfectly top, bottom, and both sides like a three-dimensional jigsaw cut from solid rock. And here is the detail that turns a clever wall into something close to genius. To make two stones fit that tightly, you cannot simply carve one and hope. The bulge on one stone has to match a hollow on the next. Exactly. Which means the builders had to shape each block to its neighbor. Then somehow lift a stone that weighs as much as a small house, check the fit, set it down again, shave off a little more, and repeat until a sheet of paper would not pass between them. We do not fully understand how they did that lifting and testing again and again at that weight. We only know they did, hundreds of times over. So ask yourself this. Honestly, which is the harder job? Making one flat face on one block? Or shaping 20 different faces on one block so that all 20 marry perfectly into 20 different neighbors, with no gap anywhere? And there is a hidden genius to it that we will come back to. Because those interlocking stones, with no mortar to crack, are part of the reason these walls have survived earthquakes that flattened everything built on top of them. The fit is not just beautiful, it is what keeps the wall standing when the ground itself starts to shake. Egypt made the smoother surface. Peru solved the harder puzzle. This round goes to Peru. And just like that, the score is level. Egypt won. Peru won. Round 3 is about the land itself, the ground each civilization had to drag its stones across. And this one, frankly, is not close. Remember Egypt's advantage. The Nile. Barges floating granite downstream. A flat floodplain at the other end. Let the river do the long haul and finish the job on level ground. Now remember where Peru was working. 3,000 meters above sea level. Steep mountain slopes. River gorges that had to be crossed. No flat water highway to float anything. No wheel to roll it. No animals strong enough to pull it. So picture the same task in both places. In Egypt, you slide a heavy stone forward on the flat, and the river has already carried it most of the way. In Peru, you have to move that same crushing weight up a mountainside. In thin air that leaves the men short of breath, knowing that one slip on a slope sends 100 tons sliding back down on top of you. And remember, there was no easy road home if it went wrong. A stone that broke loose on an Egyptian floodplain might be lost in the mud. A stone that broke loose on an Andean slope could take men with it over the edge. The margin for error was not just smaller in Peru. In places, there was no margin at all. There is simply no comparison. The ground Peru fought was brutal. This round goes to Peru. Egypt won. Peru 2. Egypt is behind now, but there is one category where Egypt simply cannot lose. Or so it seems. Round 4. Longevity. Which civilization built the thing that lasted? And here we run into a beautiful problem, because there are two completely different ways to last. Egypt's answer is raw age. These monuments are around 4,500 years old. They have stood through the rise and fall of empire after empire, watched languages be born and die, and they are still standing. When it comes to surviving sheer time, nothing beats Egypt. But Peru's answer is different and just as impressive in its own way. Peru's walls survived violence. When the Spanish arrived, they tore down what they could and built their own churches and mansions directly on top of the old Inca foundations. Then the earthquakes came. And in quake after quake, the Spanish buildings cracked, shifted, and collapsed while the Inca walls underneath them did not move. The old stones held. The new ones fell off the top of them. So which counts for more? Surviving the slow weight of time? Or surviving the sudden violence of the earth shaking itself apart, again and again? Honestly, I cannot separate them, and I do not think you can either. This round is a draw, two different kinds of built to last, which leaves the score at Egypt 1, Peru 2, and 1 round shared. Before we reach the final round, I promised you one site that quietly turns this whole debate on its head. It is time. Its name is Ollantaytambo. Say it slowly, Ollantaytambo, a ruined fortress and temple high above a valley in Peru. And near the top of it sit 6 great blocks of rose-colored stone, each weighing in the region of 50 tons. 50 tons is already a serious weight. But the weight is not the shocking part. The shocking part is where the stone came from. Those rose-colored blocks were traced to a quarry called Cachicata. And Cachicata sits on the opposite side of the valley, on the other mountain. Let that sink in. To get those stones from the quarry to the temple, the builders had to bring them down one mountain, across the river at the bottom of the valley, and then back up a second mountain on the far side. Down, across, and up again, by hand. And we know they were still in the middle of this work when it stopped. Scattered along the route between the quarry and the temple are great stones that never made it abandoned where they sat. Halfway up the mountain, frozen mid-journey. The locals have a name for them. They call them the tired stones. Stones so heavy that the work of moving them simply ran out of time. Stand beside one of those, halfway up a mountain, and the scale of what they were attempting stops being a number and becomes something you can feel in your chest. Now go back to round 1 in your mind. Egypt's giants were far heavier, yes, but Egypt's giants moved on flat ground, floated most of the way by boat. Peru's 50-ton blocks were hauled over a mountain, across a river, and up another mountain, with rope and muscle and nothing else. And suddenly you realize that biggest and hardest were never the same contest at all. Egypt won the weight, but the difficulty of what Peru attempted that is a different kind of giant altogether, which brings us to the 5th and final round. Mystery Which civilization left us with more unanswered questions about how they actually did it? And here we have to correct something, because people get this backwards. They assume Egypt is the great mystery. But Egypt, it turns out, actually told us quite a lot. There is a real document, an ancient papyrus, known as the Diary of Mirror. It is a genuine logbook, kept by an Egyptian official who organized the transport of limestone for the Great Pyramid. An actual day-by-day record of the work. On top of that, the Egyptians left quarry marks on the stone and tomb paintings showing teams of men dragging a colossal statue on a sledge with one figure pouring water onto the sand in front of it to ease the slide. In other words, Egypt, in places, told us how. They wrote part of it down. They painted it on the walls. Peru did not. Peru left almost no written record of the method at all. No logbook, no painted instructions. The knowledge of how those mountain stones were cut and moved and fitted simply walked off into history with the people who carried it. And it never came back. And that is a strange and slightly haunting thing to sit with. The people who built these walls were not primitive. They were brilliant. You only have to look at the stones to know that. But their brilliance lived in their hands and their voices and their memory, passed from one generation to the next, never written down. So when their world ended, the instructions ended with it. We are left standing in front of the answer, able to touch it, run our hands along the joints, and still unable to read how it was done. So Peru keeps more secrets. This round, fittingly, goes to Peru. So let us add it all up. Egypt took round 1 raw size. Peru took round 2, precision of the fit. Peru took round 3, the brutal terrain. Round 4, longevity, was a draw. And Peru took round 5, mystery final tally. Egypt 1, Peru 3, with 1 round shared. On points, Peru edges it. But before anyone celebrates, let me be fair to Egypt one last time. Because Egypt deserves it. Egypt moved the single heaviest stones any human beings have ever moved by muscle alone. 1,000 tons, dragged across the desert with nothing but rope, timber, water, and thousands of working men. Nothing Peru did ever match that raw, staggering number. That record still stands. And it may stand forever. And maybe, just maybe, the real lesson tonight is not who won it all. Maybe the lesson is that both of these things happened. 2 groups of human beings, on opposite sides of the earth, who never met, never traded a single word, never shared a single tool. Both of them looked at a mountain of solid stone and decided they would bend it to their will. One had a calm river to help them. One had only the Andes trying to stop them, and both of them succeeded. So here is the real question, the one I genuinely want you to settle. Does moving the biggest stone make you the better engineer? Or does doing the harder job in the harder place with the fewer tools count for more? Egypt built bigger. Peru built smarter. And I do not think there is a clean answer, which is exactly why I want yours. So tell me, down in the comments, after everything we just looked at, the weight, the fit, the mountains, the silence in the record, who actually wins for you? Egypt or Peru? And give me just one reason. One, the strongest argument you have. I read these, and the best ones genuinely change how I see it. If you enjoyed walking through this with me, and you want to stand in front of the next great stone mystery together, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. Because next time, we are going somewhere stranger still, and the question waiting for us there is even harder to answer. Until then, keep one eye on the old stones. They have a way of outlasting every explanation we give them.